Hello, my name is Jay Chapman and today I will be explaining how to draw and interpret the Solo growth model diagram. First, I will begin by drawing my vertical axis. This I will label Y as it represents output per worker. Next, I will label my horizontal axis K, which stands for capital per worker. Now I will draw my production function. This shows how adding more capital per worker increases output, but each extra unit of capital added less than the previous one. This line I will label Y. Next is the investment function. This shows how much output per worker is being invested back into capital. So this line goes under the output function and is labeled S times Y. Next, I'll draw the depreciation line. This line represents depreciation plus capital dilution, showing the amount of investment needed to keep capital per worker constant. This line I will label K times N plus D, N being the population and D being depreciation. Now I'll mark my equilibrium point, which is the steady state capital per worker. At this intersection, savings equals depreciation, so capital per worker remains constant. This is the steady state condition. If this equality holds, the economy doesn't grow or shrink, it stays stable. This point I will label A. This then would be the optimum amount of capital, and then if I follow this line up to the output function, this would be the optimum amount of output. So I will label those K star and Y star. Now, moving on to part C of the assignment, I will show and explain what happens if depreciation rate increases. So that would be an increase in this line, making this K prime N plus D. The intersection of this new depreciation line with the original investment curve identifies the new steady state. So that would be down here. This is steady state B. At steady state B, this is the lower capital per worker, and if we follow this up, this becomes the new lowered output per worker. Initially, the economy is at steady state A, where investment per worker investment per worker equals the depreciation per worker. But when the depreciation rate increases from D to D prime, depreciation now exceeds investment at the original steady state capital stock K. This imbalance implies capital per worker is declining. Due to higher depreciation, the capital stock begins to shrink, leading the economy to gradually move leftward along the investment curve. As capital per worker falls, output per worker also decreases since less capital is available per worker, leading to lower productivity and lower capital per worker. This process continues until a new equilibrium is reached at steady state B, characterized by a lower steady state capital per worker and output per worker. In the new steady state, the higher depreciation rate is now exactly matched by investment per worker, restoring equilibrium but at a permanently lower level of capital and output per worker. In summary, I've demonstrated how changes in savings or depreciation affect how capital per worker and the steady state in the Solo model. Thank you.